So yeah, I'm the social strategy lead at Huge, and Huge is a digital agency based in Brooklyn. Just opened up a DC shop, I guess, about 2 years ago, and a little bit less. But I'm going to talk a little bit, take a little different tactic on native advertising. So my background is social media, among other things, and there was a conversation in social media for the longest time about what's the value of social media, and people had two responses to that. It was one, you can't measure it, it's unknowable, therefore I'm not going to do it, or two, I'm going to jump in and just keep doing it until people figure it out. And neither of those are really right, because if you don't do it, you miss out on huge opportunity, and if you do it without knowing what the value is, you're left just measuring likes and follows and engagement. So what we're trying to do, obviously, is use native advertising to generate business results. Native advertising, it's advertising, it's right in the name, so you're going to be spending money for it, and you want to know what it's actually going to do for you. So to do that, you need to optimize your ad buy. And when you optimize an ad buy, you need to find that common metric that is available to measure across all different ad buys. You don't want to look at native in a just off by itself. Same way you don't want to look at social by itself, display, or search, because they all interact with each other, they all interact with your website, and they all have value. So you need to find that metric that that you can use to measure that all of any channel that you can measure native against other channels. So there's obviously value in content. Otherwise, people wouldn't create websites. They wouldn't be producing these wonderful, beautiful native ads. And what we need to do is we just need to determine that value. We need to find what that metric is and figure out a way to measure it. So just real quick, again, I'm not talking with native. I'm not talking about social. I'm not talking about page Facebook posts. I'm really talking about the ads that appear on the Atlantic or the New York Times, Washington Post, and where it's a brand content within a publisher site, so appearing within the newsfeed. So what native advertising does, it gives you a content engagement. It's a content view. Someone reads your content, they learn about your product, your brand. What it doesn't do social engagement. It will not push site traffic. I've had people tell me that one, and it just doesn't happen. And it won't lead to, normally, direct sale. No one's going to click on a native ad and then buy a product. It'll be a part of that purchase journey, and I'll talk about that, but it doesn't usually lead to direct sales. So this is a project that I worked on. It's with Pfizer. It's this Get Old, which is it's out of their corporate communications, and it's a program that's really trying to get people to rethink what it means to get old. And they're using it as a reputation play to really get people to rethink about Pfizer. As you're getting old, you're going to need how to live better, and Pfizer's going to be there to help you live better, help you live longer. And there's value in all of this content. So it's great when someone goes to getold.com. That's wonderful. They see that content. But they can also go to the BuzzFeed post that we did, or they could do if we placed the content on the Atlantic, they could go there, and we're still getting value. Pfizer's still getting value from that view. It doesn't have to be on the website. So you need, I'm standing right in the middle there. So you need to place your content where people are, not where you want them to be. So it's not always about pushing people back to your website. Again, but are these effective? So what we need to do first, before figuring out if the native ads are effective, we have to figure out what's the value of that content engagement. So you want to take your website content, and this is a great, easy way to do it, Google Surveys or 4C or some other survey tool, or and survey the people that have come to your site. So you can then figure out what that value is. And that value could be, these are just sample benchmarks. So you might find out, depending on the brand, that 25% of site visitors who engage with content then purchase in store. Or you might find out that for every 1 million content engagers needed, you will influence reputation by 0.1%. Or you might find out that to increase your Net Promoter Score by 1, you need 2 million people to come to your site. Now this is definitely there's lots of assumptions built in here. A whole bunch of assumptions, but it's really the way to start thinking about native advertising is what value does that content actually bring. So you have these benchmarks, and let's say you have a buy, because again, native advertising is advertising, you're spending money. So you have this great buy, and let's say you bought 5 million impressions, and you found out that your click-through rate was 1%. That's a pretty damn good click-through rate. Gotta love that. And you yield 50,000 content views, but some of those people might have bounced right away, so it wasn't really an engaged content view. So then you land on 33,000 engaged content views. And you can run, so again, this isn't on content that's on your site, this is on content that's on a publisher's site. But you take that 33,000 number, you go back up here, and you can then plug it into any one of these, whatever your benchmark is, and you can determine that value. And that's wonderful and that's great, but at the same time, you then have to look at what the cost of that media is. So it's never just the value, you always have to look at the cost. So with the cost, let's say you're getting $12 CPMs, again, that $1 or 1% click-through rate, the cost per view becomes $1.20, and the cost per engaged view becomes $1.81. Those numbers might not. I might have done the math wrong between the $1.81 and the 33,000, but don't worry about it. What this shows is you have that $1.81, and let's say that's your cost per engaged view. You have your 33,000 engaged viewers. You can then get a cost for what for the value that they're bringing. And then once you have that cost, once you know how much the cost of that value, you can then optimize across placements and channels. So, oh wow, so channel, you have the native, you have the social, and you have the display. And you have the placements, let's say you have 2 separate placements on each one. You have the cost per engaged view. And again, since you're looking at native as that content view, it doesn't matter if someone's going to Facebook, clicking on a paid Facebook post and then going back to your site. It doesn't matter if they're going from a display ad back to your site. Any one of those content views is the same. So you can look at the cost and you can say, oh look, native's doing great. You can look at social and say, wow, that might be Twitter, that sucks because Twitter's ridiculously expensive. But Facebook's doing really good. And you could go to display and say, oh wow, $34 or $12, that's no good. So obviously, when you do all that, you're going to say that I want money, I want to put my money against these placements and that placement there. So when you do it right, you can maximize your views at the lowest amount of money, or maximize your content engagements for the least amount of money, which is what you're always trying to do with advertising. And this was actually the only stat that I could actually share with you guys, but this has been wildly successful because we were doing that. I mean, this launched in July, and since then it's been going great. But this is one of the tactics that we use to push people back to push the content for Getold.com. And so that's all well and good. That's great. It's fun. But where it gets really interesting is when you take native advertising and you actually add it to an attribution model. And this is I have a minute and 20 seconds to talk about this, so we'll see how it goes. Basically, an attribution model, it uses all the touch point data from a purchasing path that someone may have, and it models out the value of each of those touch points. So let's say this is a website ad, that might be a print ad, that might be a website ad, Twitter, native advertising, desktop. Each one is worth a different amount of money, and then you actually get the conversion. So at this point, you can actually track native back to your final sales, or whatever that conversion is. It might be, again, it might be reputation or Net Promoter Score. So you can actually put a specific value. And the great thing about using attribution is this is where you can actually pull in the value that the publisher gives you on native. So the big thing about native is you're putting your content on the New York Times and the Washington Post, and there's some inherent value in people seeing your content on that site. Without an attribution model, you can't really measure what that value is. You don't know, because there's no hard and fast direct conversion off of native, you don't know what that value is to put your content on the Washington Post versus the New York Times. You can learn a little bit just from the overall click-through rate, but that can be tweaked by if they say promoted post versus advertising or so on. So with an attribution model, you can actually figure that out, so that's fantastic from a brand perspective. It allows you to optimize even more, and it also allows you to capture the true benefit of the content. So at that point, you can actually optimize the content as well as the placement. And you can't really optimize the creative without that. So I guess that's it.